why, and you already said you can't provide evidence, is that Tree of Logic was paid by the left.
I 100% think that she's paid. There was no way. By the way, if I say that I think something is paid, that is at my discretion. I can say I cannot present to you a fact, and you can't present to me not a fact. Okay, so we're both. I'm speculating, and you're saying
it's going to sound crazy coming from me, but I appreciate someone like Candace Owens to show me the hypocrisy on both sides, the nastiness, and how money and power rules over all.
Look at her face. Look at her stupid bitch face. You can literally see it in her eyes that she is a stupid bitch.
What I was loath to see before, that Candace is not on our team. She's not pursuing the future that we're pursuing. She's not appealing to the audience we're appealing to. She does not hold the values that we hold to. I gave her every benefit of the doubt. I gave her far more benefit of the doubt than I should have, and I'm done.
I've seen her say things without any evidence of her feeling a burden to back it up with a fact. Like, Richard Spencer is a Democratic plant. The Southern strategy never happened. That if you're going to argue that, you better know something that mainstream historians don't. But she seems to feel no burden to back those opinions up with evidence. When challenged on Joe Rogan about why she thinks climate change isn't real, she doesn't even have a single study to back it up. She's not a smart climate skeptic, or it's just her gut feeling against the view that she thinks is wrong. And when asked to back it up, often has nothing.
You don't think we have to care about the environment? Like, what do you...
No, not even a little bit. Do I believe in climate change? No.
You don't believe in climate change?
No. I think the climate always changes, I guess. I think that was just a way to extract dollars from Americans.
This is an incredibly complicated subject.
Right.
And if you would have to talk to a bunch of different scientists and see how they gather data. Have you done all this? Or do you take this flippant opinion based on the party line?
This wouldn't be the hill I died on, right? But it's not about the party. I just genuinely, I've read a ton about it, but I would not be able to come to you and say, like, this is my strong opinion. Forget the fact of whether you believe global warming is real. Let's say it's 100% real. Let's say we know for a fact it's real. Is there a way?
Well, let's be clear.
Yeah.
Global warming, climate change is definitely real. It's happening.
Well,
the question is, why has it happened? Yes, it has always happened.
So what is the climate change? Yes, the climate changes. It was different weather yesterday than it was today. The climate is forever changing. Like that's the problem, is that people are making it seem like that's something weird.
No, that's not. You're misrepresenting the issue.
Yeah, obviously her whole point is to get out there, get attention. She likes being provocative and inflammatory. That's her right. But, with that, you also have to face the consequences. And I think, too, just on some of the lack of education she has on these issues, which we'll get into on some of the specific claims, to couple not knowing the facts with extreme moral stridency, and then to get upset when you're called on it, I just think is,
Let's take a look at what Candace Owens is doing. Defending Andrew Tate, of course.
And I see these allegations of him being a rapist, human sex trafficking, whatever in Romania. And my take on this is that I do not believe that Andrew Tate is a rapist. I don't. I think that is what people like to accuse men of when they're trying to take them down.
Bro, when you're right wing, these guys who otherwise would defend, they're defending sex work, which is crazy, which is not even sex work, it's sex trafficking. It's so strange to me that, in order to defend a sex trafficking right wing pervert, these people will literally turn around and start defending consensual sex work.
So a woman's worth is tied to her sexuality.
It's not tied to, well, absolutely. If you're going to be having multiple partners, you are going to be devaluing yourself.
You're worth less as a human being.
Not as a human being, just, in terms of trying to have a partnership and a productive relationship. Certainly men are not going to be clamoring to have a relationship with somebody when the market is growing them.
A man's response to your actions is what defines your worth, right?
Yeah. Well,
in one breathtaking moment of honesty, Candace Owens has laid bare the opaque foundation of modern conservative sexual politics. A woman's worth is directly proportional to how few people she's slept with. Not her achievements, not her character, not her contributions to society, just the number on her sexual odometer.
I would say that, yes, women have devalued themselves by becoming overtly sexual.
3 words. That's all it takes, Zena has spotted exactly what's happening here. Candace's answer is too vague, too slippery, devalued themselves according to what standard, by whose measure, in whose eyes. To make a quick meta point, in philosophy, being evasive as Candace is being here isn't seen as clever, it's seen as a serious failure. If you can't clearly articulate your position, you're not effectively communicating your thesis. You're not doing philosophy, you're doing rhetoric. Real tell is how quickly her all-women claim crumbled under the slightest pressure. One clarifying question from Zena, and suddenly there are exceptions everywhere.
There could be an exceptional case for everything.
But they just don't matter, because Candace has appointed herself as the arbiter of which women's experiences count. Notice the pattern. These bold, supremely confident, sweeping claims that sound so powerful on stage, but with the tiniest amount of pressure, not even asking her to defend her position, just to clarify it, she crumbles into qualifications, exceptions, and backpedaling.
There could be an exceptional case.
It's almost as if these talking points are designed for applause lines, not for actual scrutiny.
Candace is actually saying something somewhat profound. She's saying, I will say whatever gets the most reward. She may not even know that that's what she's saying, but she's articulating audience capture as a virtue.
The life of Candace Owens. It works like this. I wake up, I stretch, have a cup of coffee, and then I'm served with a lawsuit. I love how she utterly omits the part where she uses her platform to endlessly libel people and thus richly deserves said lawsuits. So in this video, I would like to make the case that Candace Owens is not an honest broker of information. That's it, that's all. She has been caught in a multitude of lies about countless topics, ranging from medical misinformation, anti-feminist talking points, anti-Semitic propaganda, blood libels, falsehoods about the state of Israel and AIPAC, disinformation about the war in Gaza, disinformation about World War II, disinformation about the American education system, about evangelical Christianity, about Christian Zionism, about Zionism itself, of course, convicted serial rapists, alleged serial rapists, alleged human traffickers and pornographers, the Charlie Kirk assassination, Brigitte Macron's genitalia, Emmanuel Macron's history, and countless calculated defamatory lies about her former friends, employers, and critics. I'll show examples of all of these. I've exhausted myself researching information about her, things she said, things other people have said about her. It's all been quite fascinating. But I'll definitely include them throughout the video series, and especially in the final video when we do the great debunking of Candace Owens. As a result of her many calculated lies and distortions and fake expertise on topics that she researched shallowly and then distorted to serve her own ends, she has been thoroughly debunked and humiliated across the intrawebs for many years. We always say she lost her credibility recently, but that's not true. She never had credibility. And all the debunking that has gone on with regard to her content for years is something that her current viewers seem to have totally memory hold, because many of them continue to tune in and swear to her legitimacy and continue to treat her as though her reporting is done with even a modicum of journalistic integrity at this point, which is laughably stupid. Candace Owens is, and always has been, a fraudulent pseudo-intellectual, someone who managed to dupe both the left and the right by speaking loudly and rapidly and regurgitating all their favorite talking points in a convincing manner. She bewitched the world with what actually, looking back on it, was quite poorly delivered conspiratorial rantings dressed up as political rhetoric.
You don't think we have to care about the environment? Like,
no, not even a little bit.
Not even a little bit?
No. Do I believe in climate change? No.
You don't believe in climate change?
Well, I think the climate always changes, I guess is what I should say. Do I believe that this is an issue that is being, that is global warming, which they've changed conveniently. They got rid of the word once scientists started disproving it. Now they only say climate change. No, I think that was just a way to extract dollars from Americans.
But everyone was so fascinated by a young, relatively attractive, provocative, quasi-articulate Black woman.
If you can't compartmentalize, and a CEO and a chairman has to compartmentalize. The IDF even dropped napalm 12.5 miles off the coast of the Sinai Peninsula. Is that correct when you arrive into the Sinai Peninsula?
Sinai.
illiterate person.
In Portland, Oregon, the Hamptons debacle came up. Hamptons, okay? Remember that whole debacle? We knew a kerfluffle happened.
Espousing conservative viewpoints that they tossed all other standards out of the window. The long and short of it is, Candace was an aberration. And because conservatives are forever fighting allegations of being white, stodgy, religiously bigoted neo-Nazis, they tend to break their necks propping up any and every aberration that happens to drift their way. Even those who are quite clearly just cashing in on the red pill grift and who hold exactly zero recognizably conservative positions. So for that reason, conservatives were easily duped by Candace Owens and amplified her to the fucking moon. And Candace, to her credit, realized early on the success she could garner in being an ideological aberration, and that became her grift essentially. From then on, no matter the absolute lunacy she would need to espouse to remain an aberration. And that's what we've been witnessing from her ever since, especially now. That's why she at times seems so puzzling to people, because she's trying to be an aberration for being an aberration's sake. Nothing about it is authentic. But these days, she's become representative of something far darker, spiritually speaking, malevolent even. I just really want to emphasize how she tends to frame information dishonestly in order to weaponize it and further her personal ideological crusades. Once you understand that basic premise, you are then empowered. You can go back and listen to Candace Owens, and she's completely demystified at that point. She no longer seems brilliant or intelligent or impressive. And more importantly, it's not just her, because there will be others. This will empower you to exercise greater caution, to approach information with a mind towards critical thinking instead of blindly consuming the slop spoon-fed to you by podcasters or traditional media, because it's a double-edged sword. It cuts both ways. Both are extremely biased and toxic and are just trying to indoctrinate you for their own purposes. So we can then be empowered to do our own research and seek out credible sources to inform our opinions on each individual topic you take interest in. Don't get everything from one place, and I certainly didn't do that with this video series. I looked at information from Candace from a multitude of different sources, both pro and against Candace. I even looked at Candace's content as well to some extent, but I also looked at arguments from people who were Zionists and people who are anti-Zionists, who all actually came together to condemn her and debunk her. So I thought that was fascinating. And so you allow those different credible sources to inform your worldview first and foremost. It's probably best that you don't get all of your information from one place, because no one is an expert on everything and everyone has biases, including myself. I try to conscientiously set those aside when I'm doing something like this. I try to be objective and I try to be honest in the way I deliver the information. She is the exact opposite. She frames everything according to her biases. I'll show examples of that throughout this video series.
Because you work for the deep state and the Democratic Party and the CIA and MI6, and I see your ass. Let me give Candace Owens a little newsflash here. Bitch, you don't sit up there on some hill and tell me who ate the cabbage.
Erika Kirk is evil and was in on it, or Candace Owens is an evil cunt.
So, when Candace Owens says, I don't know, but I know, that is retarded. And we are all more retarded for having heard it.
And she does not live the way other people live. And she claims she liked Charlie, she loved Charlie, and she is burning everything down that he built because she is evil. She is evil.
Always bobbing her head. No, you don't say that. Oh, I'm Candace Owens, I'm cocky. What is with that cocky attitude? So unattractive, too, as a woman, so unattractive. She's the most cocky bitch I've ever seen in my life. Who the fuck wants that? Going around wagging her finger.
What I say about Candace is she's a bad friend. A friend wouldn't try to tear down Charlie's legacy.
What I am asking everybody, including Candace, is to please leave this woman alone. Let her grieve. Let her pick up the pieces of her shattered life in whatever way she sees fit.
Cult leader, conspiracist, lunatic, grifter, romantic reject, beard, anti-Semite, libeler, leftist psyop. These are just some of the countless colorful labels used by many across the web to explain the catastrophe that has become Candace Owens. The question is, why? What changed? How did this woman, who was once seen as one of the most courageous and gifted political commenters of color, become reduced to a slew of disreputable labels in such a short period of time? From feuding with Cardi B and Harry Styles, to being endorsed by Kanye West, to beefing with the president of France and the prime minister of Israel, Candace's jarring rhetoric and contrarian positions have seen her accumulate massive global influence in digital media, but also equal amounts of scorn. What is it about her that bugs everyone so much? Well, maybe I can try to answer that as someone who used to be a huge fan and admirer of hers. That is, until I began to see right through her. To put it plainly, Candace Owens has built an entire career, I kid you not, off of saying things that at times sound plausible, like on the surface, usually based on loosely connected dots or timelines that she tends to present, but in truth are rather specious. And don't get me wrong, most politicians and media pundits on both sides of the aisle engage in this kind of sophistry, unfortunately, to advance their causes, because everyone is so insanely tribalistic these days and are more concerned with winning than the truth. But Candace has taken this concept to unprecedented extremes, yet has somehow convinced a large portion of the world that she is an unparalleled truth teller. It's bonkers. An example of her making specious arguments would be, you can't just be widowed into CEO. Some people would innately agree with that statement, except you can technically be widowed into the role of CEO, not by bequeathment, but under special circumstances, particularly the ones that TPUSA found themselves in. If the CEO of an organization is also the founder of said organization, and the president, and the chief fundraiser, and the preeminent face of the company, and if a great deal of this success was based on his personality and image, it stands to reason that he would want the company to remain in the hands of his own family to continue his vision and legacy. Therefore, if it was the stated wish of Charlie Kirk in the event of his death that Erika Kirk take over as CEO of the organization he founded when he was only 18 and dedicated his entire adult life to and literally died for, and if the board of directors also agreed and approved Erika taking over as CEO by vote, which is what TPUSA did and publicly stated as much, then Erika Kirk very much can be widowed into CEO. See how some things actually require nuance to understand? So what Candace originally said sounded plausible to some, but was false, and was an obviously loaded statement because she always speaks in innuendo. What she meant is that she doesn't think Erika should be widowed into CEO. She was being intellectually dishonest based on her own biases, and she said it with the intention of making the world suspicious of Erika Kirk, which she has very much succeeded at, and to imply that Erika coveting the role of CEO might have been a motive for the assassination of Charlie Kirk. That's insanely deceptive and a huge leap, considering the person who allegedly shot Charlie Kirk is in custody, was caught on multiple cameras tracking his path to and from the scene of the crime, was recognized by his family in the still from the videos, his DNA was found on the murder weapon, his private messages discuss committing the crime and returning to collect the weapon, and he confessed the crime to his family, who ultimately turned him in. Like his father turned him in, not a distant cousin, his father. And this man had previously expressed hatred towards Charlie Kirk and his politics at family gatherings. And there is zero available evidence that Erika Kirk had ties to this person or communicated with him in any way. Candace has nothing on Erika Kirk, so now she's planning to dig into her past to drum up a bunch of random things that she can spiral into just to get the world to distrust and hate Erika Kirk, which they already are. She now has to tell her audience how to feel about things. So when she plays clips of a perfectly normal meeting with Erika Kirk and TPUSA, she has to imply that something is wrong, that something is uncomfortable, so that her audience can feel the same way. It's just mind control. It's very cultish.
She's also telling you how to feel about something. In general, she is guiding her audience towards certain feelings and certain vibes she wants from a story. And throughout the process, truth and facts get jettisoned to instead wholly embrace this vibe. As we go through her various videos, you'll notice her evidence and argumentation is always very lacking, but it's very rich in style. And I think this is how she's reaching people. And what's even more alarming is the direction she's trying to push people towards. Not just one that ignores scientific consensus, but one that reinforces a lot of ugly political opinions.
And I'm not here to mount a defense for TPUSA, as I disagree with a lot that they've done, including platforming countless intellectually dishonest individuals who've gone off the deep end ideologically. So what they're experiencing right now with Candace Owens is sort of just them being forced to sleep in the bed they've made for themselves. And I suspect their relationship with other deceivers that they've routinely platformed to siphon off their audiences will end in much the same disastrous manner, because these people and their thoughts and their ideas are cancerous. Essentially, Candace makes claims that have the ring of common sense, and some even contain grains of truth, such as the age gap between Brigitte Macron and Emmanuel Macron when they first met, being 14 versus 39, was troubling, and the relationship they developed was creepy and inappropriate. That's totally fair, even though Macron was reportedly 15, and Candace may have lied to make it sound more incriminating, and even though the age of consent in France is 15, we can still recognize it is extremely predatory for a 39-year-old to romantically entertain a 15-year-old in any regard, or even wait on them to become an adult. That's fucking gross. Still, her framing of most facts in most stories is disingenuous at best, and worst, is purposefully misleading or loaded with innuendo to support her personal crusades, i.e. agendas.
She also has another conspiracy theory that I survived a shooting by my own brother, which is an absolute fabrication, and this is nuts. Because I've been very heavily criticizing her, she's now claimed that I'm in financial distress, suffering some kind of personal issue. I don't know, maybe it was the shooting at my property, I'll give her that one. And that I'm trying to sell my company, so I'm auditioning for Zionists. If that wasn't the best she could come up with, she then today claimed I survived a shooting committed by my own brother, which is the most insane thing anyone could ever possibly say. It is, accusing my own brother of trying to murder me is the stupidest thing imaginable.
So she takes a leap from there being an inappropriate age gap between the two to then conclude that Brigitte Macron is an unscrupulous person. And this therefore lends credence to the idea that Brigitte is secretly a biological male named Jean-Michel Trogneau and has stolen the identity of his dead sister, Brigitte Trogneau. And this transsexual person is also the blood relative of Emmanuel Macron and is therefore in an incestuous relationship with him. And oh yeah, Emmanuel was also brainwashed in an MK Ultra-esque government program and is now a Manchurian candidate or puppet president being mind controlled. And Brigitte Macron, back when she was still Jean-Michel, participated in the Stanford prison experiment, which led to him transitioning. And also the Macrons are part of a culture or a sadistic crime syndicate in France that protects perverts or something like that. And they are a part of an alleged conspiracy that involved Charlie being assassinated to distract from Candace investigating them.
We were getting very close to something as we had started on September 8th, by the way, our Becoming Brigitte season 2. As we were trying to determine whether or not it could have been Brigitte Macron that was involved in that Stanford experiment, this prisoner, 2093. And what really terrifies me is that if my inclination that Xavier Poussard's messages have been being read and tracked for longer than I even realized, and that's the reason they initially sent that cease and desist in December, was to ward me off sitting down with Xavier Poussard, then what we hadn't yet presented to the audience, but what we were investigating on the back end, if they were aware of that, it really makes me wonder if we were on the right track. And it was something that was so sinister, involving maybe another step of the MK Ultra program being used to foster serial killers and to give serial killers new identities and allowing them to run in countries. That was kind of conversations that I was having in the background with Xavier. And we thought that we had perhaps identified Brigitte Macron at Stanford University, a possibility is what I would say. We were maybe at a 50-50%. And then suddenly Charlie Kirk gets assassinated, and it totally throws us off of the scent entirely because we're trying to figure out what happened to Charlie. And now, strangely, trying to figure out what happened to Charlie has brought us back to a France question, right?
And oh yeah, they also put $1 million hit on Candace's head for uncovering all their dirt. But don't worry, despite them knowing exactly where she lives, she hasn't been unalived yet. The more I read her insanity aloud, the clearer it becomes how severely mentally ill this woman is. Point being, Candace tells you 1 or 2 grains of truth to establish some semblance of credibility, and then endlessly piles absurd conspiracies atop, thereby trying to conflate the plausibility of everything she says to an undiscerning, conspiracy-obsessed audience. With that being said, Candace, no matter how much she tries to assert it, does not argue from a place of good faith. Her biases are plain-spoken and undeniable. I don't even think her audience would deny that her biases are very plain and clear to see. She argues from a place of ruthlessly protecting her own presuppositions and proving her wild conjecture, regardless of where the facts lead. That is not journalism. That is desperate confirmation bias. She is cosplaying a journalist when she's more like a tin hat freak, spewing sweltering delusions from the comfort of a padded cell, or, her basement, where she homeschools those poor children. You can simply illustrate her consistent epistemic failures because these errors in how she measures the validity of information, as well as her pretense of critical thinking and her reversing the burden of proof onto those she wildly accuses, all erode the foundation of her entire belief system and thus her credibility. How she even determines information to be true or trustworthy is of critical importance because as a listener of her content, people need to know if her process for vetting information is acceptably rigorous or reliable, especially because she dedicates so much of her time to getting you to mistrust the established narratives and the established facts, like in the Charlie Kirk assassination. She does not promote healthy skepticism or spiritual discernment. Like a true schizo, she fosters paranoia to an alarming degree, trying to get her listeners to simply mistrust everything they see and hear except her word. And that, my friends, is the MO of a cult leader, not a thought leader.